If you look in the face of evil,
We think he's responsible for the deaths of at least 5 people.
evil's gonna look right back at you.
I got a hell of an ending. Just not the one I wanted.
Is someone like Ryan Murphy someone who's a calculated genius or not? I mean, what happens on American Horror Story is meant to be organic to the premise.
Well, I certainly think it's meant to be organic to the premise. I know that it's very out there, but I think that's what makes it so exciting. It's a very visceral viewing experience. And I know that Ryan has a very specific editing style. He works with the same editors, I believe, on most of his shows. And there's a kind of aggressiveness to the editing, which I think helps to tell the story. And I certainly think it's what he wants in terms of calculation. I don't think he's... I don't quite know what you mean by that, like in terms of...
Like, is it shock for shock value's sake or no?
Oh, I don't think it's for shock value's sake. I mean, I certainly think this year in particular, we're about to start shooting episode 10, so based on what I know has happened, where we started in the first episode and where we are now, it's all been kind of... I know a lot happens in the first 3 episodes. It's a lot to take in, but slowly the story starts to come front and center, and it's less about, big scares and things jumping out at you. And I think it's very emotional, the show, actually, and it gets increasingly emotional as the story goes on, as you start to develop more of a connection and investment in the characters. And I think Ryan's good at kind of grabbing you in the beginning by throwing everything at you, and then he kind of takes his foot off the gas a little bit, and everything kind of can settle, and I think that's what he does so well.
There's a line in the second episode where the times may have changed, but the nature of evil hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you think why people are so galvanized by this universe? Because it really is quite disturbing to watch some of the...
Yeah, I mean, I really loved the first season, but this season to me is just 20 times more terrifying because to me it's much more based in reality. I think a very horrifying reality, but a reality nevertheless, because the first year there were a lot of, if you died in the house, your character was a ghost. I personally don't really believe in ghosts. I haven't had any encounters, and I really like to keep it that way. So, whereas this year, it's really about a sort of psychological terror and people who have power versus the powerless. And in 1964, there was a certain stopping point where you couldn't pass if you didn't have enough power. And this show, I think, really explores that, which I think is very terrifying. The idea that a woman like my character could get committed to an institution specifically for being a lesbian in 1964 is a pretty terrifying concept when you think about it.
Lana's a reporter, and who's supposed to be this beacon of truth. And I'm wondering, is that what your function is going to be? You're going to be the truth of the asylum for this season.
I do think that is the truth, yes. Lana Winters is, I think she's right now the last remaining hope. And the person, I think, with the most determination at this point. I don't know, I can't promise that it's going to stay that way, but yeah.
What makes living in the gray such an exciting prospect for actors? Because the show has a very specific morality, but it's not a very clear black and white ideal morality.
Yes. I think to me that's like life. Most of life kind of lives in the gray. And I don't just mean morally, I just mean kind of everything. If things were black and white, it would be a lot clearer as to what to do all the time. And I think... I don't know, I just feel like life kind of lives there, and that's another thing I think Ryan does, is that he just kind of takes you to the brink and lets you hover in this uncomfortable place, and that's what makes it so creepy and awful.
For a show that has a subtitle, Asylum, I love the word commit, because it has a lot of different meanings in this particular context, and for this cast to put themselves in some very vulnerable moments and positions as people, why commit to such challenging, disturbing material? How do you decompress from that?
It's been hard. There's something that happens to me around episode 6 and 7, 6 in particular, that was so disturbing that I had to kind of take a minute, and I asked if they could give me a second, and I went into a corner and kind of bawled my eyes out by myself, because it got to a point where the kind of torture that was happening to an innocent woman was, and the kind of torture was just really horrifying, and it is a difficult thing to kind of suspend yourself in, because it's one thing on the page, you see a 2-page scene, but you're shooting it for 7 hours, and if the thing that's happening to the terrible thing is happening over and over and over again, and you're having to kind of stay in this emotional place, and it's really hard. And at the same time, in episode 2, my character gets electric shock therapy, and it was one of the more terrifying things to do, and I kind of couldn't walk for 2 days afterwards because what I had to do to my body to get it to be that rigid and move in that way. And I had a conversation with my mother the next day, and she said, well, how are you? And I said, well, I'm okay. I'm a little tired. We did this electroshock therapy yesterday. And she said, well, that is just so horrible. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of exhilarating, actually, because that actress part of me is very excited by the fact that I get to really sink my teeth into something. And, you don't always get those opportunities to... if you think about Claire Danes or somebody, who's got this incredible part on Homeland that's so multifaceted, but prior to that, in the last couple years, she was doing great parts in movies, but it wasn't, before Temple Grandin, there was kind of a dearth of real great stuff for her to sink her teeth into, and now she can really let it fly, which I think is an incredible thing. So it's similar with this, and I think it's why it's attracted the caliber of actor that's, James Cromwell and Jessica and all these people, I think is because there's something really meaty there, which you don't find in a lot of places, but more you're finding it on television than anywhere else, I think.
I think when the season's over, you're going to have Sarah Paulson master class.
I don't know. Well, we'll see. There's things I wish I could tell you that you won't really believe that happens to poor Lana Winters.
We look forward to it. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.